it goes against the entire narrative of Carney that he is the man with a plan. That's why he told Canadians, and it's why he won this last election. They believe he had a plan.
Hope you're having yourself a great, fantastic Victoria Day weekend. I know I'm enjoying my long weekend. I hope you were enjoying yours. And what the heck has been going on the past 4 days? You know, your boy had to take a bit of a break, need some time to relax. Just kidding. No, as a new father, there's no time for relaxing out here, as many of you would know. However, I've been watching politics from afar. Been watching politics just kind of operate behind the scenes. And man, it's been getting wild. Friday was crazy, and this is the story we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to break it down of essentially the origin story, how it progressed through the weekend into today, and what this actually means for Canada as a whole. As you know, Friday, this article really got people going. Canada's new tariffs on U.S. dropped to nearly zero with exemptions, Oxford Economics says. It's a strategic approach from a new PM to say we're not going to have a retaliation, says Tony Steele, Oxford Director of Canada Economics. And this really blew up in a huge way. Published May 15th. But really got a huge swell of attention on Friday. And Polyev tweeted about it. Michelle Ferreri tweeted about it. All the right-wing influencers tweeted about it. Heck, I did a TikTok on it. It was wild. And people were like, we told you this was going to happen. It was elbows up. People are bum, 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 bum. And here we are. They quietly reduce the tariffs. They quietly take them off the U.S. That is the story that took place, or at least the narrative that pervaded through social media on Friday into the weekend. Then the weekend took place, and the left wing got a hold of the story. And they said it was fake news. Can't believe it. They announced this happening April 16th. They didn't hide it. And that was the huge tension that took place, was the fact that it was announced on a government website that April 16th, they're going to be looking to, quote unquote, have some carve out some remissions for the tariffs. But it wasn't fully announced till May 7th, which you'll see here. April 16th is announced, but it was a part of the May 7th announcement and release. So the tension was building on the right and the left. The right saying they did it quietly during the election, and he didn't believe us. It was elbows up, elbows up. You wouldn't believe us. And now they announced it May 7th after an election. It was all BS. Elbows up was crop. It was not to be believed. It was not to be taken seriously. It was just an element to be used to gain political victory and win an election. So they said this was where the tension lied. Left wing took the story over the weekend and decided to put stuff up like this. The latest Carney outrage that he quietly canceled the tariffs is ridiculous. The right-wing Twitter sphere is breaking their brains on it. I did a deep dive. Turns out it's BS. Come along with me for a thread, please. And he goes on talking about all of it and trying to break it all down, trying to disprove it, trying to fact check it, trying to show that the right wing doesn't know what they're talking about. In today's show, we're going to break down both sides of this argument. And we're going to show you what actually went down, what took place, and where the tension lies between left and the right on this, and what does it mean for Canada as a whole. As I said, the right wing said this elbows up mantra was BS, but the liberals kept shouting elbows up, elbows up. We're going to stick it to Trump. We're going to stick it to the U.S. We're going to show them what's up, 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 bum. And then to see a move like this, where the tariffs are effectively zero impact on the U.S. at this point. Elbows up, right? Elbows up. Huh? It was such a wild story that only the right wing even covered it. We have 3 sources, all right wing covering the story. Nothing from the left on this one. And this is where the arguments come in from the left wing. This is the breakdown. Someone saw this individual also was commenting on my post saying, you're a liar. This is all fake news, fake news, fake news. And then proceeded to show all these stories. He announced it. He talked about it. He talked about it here. He talked about it there. Bam, 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 bam. Well, my friends, sure. We'll get into that after this. But let's just do a quick montage, shall we? Quick montage of what the messaging was throughout the campaign, shall we? Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
His attacks on Canada. He said that he's not just trolling, that he means what he says. As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. Crisis of our lifetimes. Donald Trump is trying to fundamentally change the world economy, the trading system. But really what he's trying to do to Canada, he's trying to break us so the U.S. can own us. They want our land, they want our resources, they want our water, they want our country. And we're all going to stand up against Donald Trump. We will need to ensure that Canada can succeed in a drastically different world. The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over.
Look, they're serious. They want our resources, they want our land, they want our water, they want our country. President Trump wants to break us.
So there's just kind of a quick montage, right, of all the rhetoric throughout the election. They want to break us. They want to own us. They want our resources. They want our land. They want our water. We got to fight. Bum, bum, bum. And then he goes in and talks about the tariffs. The tariffs, how they're going to fight back against the U.S. in tariffs in these next few videos. Let's take a look at these, shall we? Oh, here in Nova Scotia.
One in the United States that we will impose retaliatory dollar-for-dollar tariffs if these measures are put in place. We will target those tariffs where they have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact in Canada. We will support our companies and workers that are most affected. We'll recycle the money from those tariffs to support them. To these latest tariffs is to fight, is to protect, and to build. We will fight the U.S. tariffs with retaliatory trade actions of our own that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impacts here in Canada. We will protect our workers and our industries during this difficult period. We didn't ask for this fight. We didn't ask for this fight. But Canadians are always ready when someone else drops the gloves. So the Americans, they should make no mistake, in trade as in hockey, Canada will win.
How did you enjoy that trip down memory lane? Fight, retaliatory tariffs. We went from dollar for dollar, then retaliatory tariffs. We're going to fight, we're going to show the U.S. We're going to have maximum impact on the U.S. economy, minimum impact here. That's what we're going to do. That's going to be the focus. This was the rhetoric that they won a whole election on. So suffice to say, the right wing's a little frustrated when they see this article saying, whoa, they gave remissions halfway through the election process and did it quietly. Oh, so quiet. Whispers. But then May 7th, it was published. What is going on? What is happening? Remissions. And what are remissions? Well, there's specific areas where this is the issue. And this is where the salient messaging with strategic obfuscation takes place from this liberal government. What do I mean by that? They gave remissions to healthcare. They gave remissions to manufacture, processing, and packaging, to our steel and aluminum. They gave remissions in all the core areas where we buy the most from the United States. That's why in that National Post article, it says it's effectively zero because the impact of them are nothing. You announce tariffs on the United States to have maximum impact on the industry, but then you're giving remissions to pretty much everything, neutering the exact thing you said you were going to do in the policy that you put in place. That's why people are frustrated. That's why it got very loud. Sure, was there some misunderstandings of what was going on? Yes. Was there misunderstandings of what was happening? Yes. But the fact of the matter is that they were being untruthful and deceitful in their practices in announcing this. You have articles like this, who says, no secrecy here, Ottawa's tariff rollback was reported widely by the press and the federal government. And they went in and talk about all these things, and we're going to look at some of those, shall we? Well, the Canadian government announced in a press release that Canada announces new support for Canadian businesses affected by U.S. tariffs. Minister of Finance, the Honorable François-Philippe Champagne, today announced new measures for Canadian businesses and entities affected by the tariff dispute between Canada and the United States. These measures include the remission of some of the countermeasure tariffs announced by Canada in response to unjustified tariffs imposed by the U.S. on Canadian products. And this was April 15th. This is the thing that the left is pointing to. They did talk about it. They had a whole press release on it. The CBC reported on it. François-Philippe Champagne even tweeted about it. He said, here, we'll fight, we'll protect, we'll build. Ottawa grants automakers tariff relief, but warns of pullback if they cut domestic manufacturing investment. He posted this on April 15th as well. People are pointing, look at that. It was clear as day. They're being completely transparent. And don't forget, for better or for worse, for extra measure, he even included the Globe and Mail article. Oh, yes, the Globe and Mail article. That is behind a paywall. Salient messaging with strategic obfuscation. That is the mantra of this liberal government and has been for so long. The other clip that has been cited, well, he talked about it in the debate that they weren't going to go dollar for tariffs. And here's the issue they're talking about here. And this was a question that was posed to Mark Carney on the debate stage, and this was his answer to it.
Do you still support dollar for dollar tariffs, even if they ultimately threaten Canadian jobs and businesses?
No, and in fact, we've already moved off from dollar for dollar tariffs. We have to recognize, and I think we all do, the United States economy is more than 10 times the size of the Canadian economy. And the principle in terms of our counter tariffs is to have maximum impact in the United States, as I said a moment ago, minimum impact here. So we have to think about the impact on Canadian businesses. I'll give you one example, if I may. In the auto sector, the way we've designed those auto tariffs is that Canadian automakers, if they maintain production here, if they maintain their investments here, when I say Canadian automakers, I mean automakers that have jobs and plants and production in Canada, then they can have lower tariffs on what they ship to the United States. We create a huge incentive for them in order to do that. We also have carved out the Canadian auto parts sector. Last point, I know you're pressed for time, the Canadian auto parts sector, so that it can remain competitive with the United States. We're focused on maximizing Canadian jobs, maximizing the harm in the U.S. So that we get them.
Maximum harm to the U.S. But the thing is, you've essentially neutered your whole policy around tariffs with the idea of essentially these remissions. You're putting no harm on the U.S. You're doing absolutely nothing. All you're doing is saying one thing and then quietly doing things behind the scenes so it looks a certain way. Kind of feels very similar to, I don't know, the carbon tax, maybe. You know, that whole thing, 8 out of 10 families gets money back, but no one was actually experiencing that. This is a very similar program. It's almost effectively a redistribution scheme. That's what it is. They collect the tariffs on the front end, and businesses have to submit for remission so they can get those funds back. It's just, we're just going to hold it for a bit and then give it to you. That's the thing. That's what these remissions are, which effectively neuter the whole tariff issue. What's the point of tariffs? The point of tariffs is to protect industry on your end, to make it financially hard to bring in material from another country. So you're using this to promote the economy within your own country. That's the focus. But they're using it here as a weapon as to fight against the U.S. So what happens? Well, people buy the stuff from the U.S. It comes here. They apply for remission. They get their money back through the government. And then the rest is history. What happens? Well, because we don't have any replacement for what we buy from the U.S., we don't actually make it here. That's why these remissions are in place, because we realize the dollar for dollar tariff mentality and thought process was incredibly stupid. Diplomacy was going to win at the end of the day, but they didn't talk about that. They didn't shout it from the rooftops. They're shouting this. They're taking our resources. They're taking our water. They're going to take our country. That was very loud. Rollback on tariffs. Pretty quiet. We posted it, though. We talked about it, but it's quiet. Bringing down the dollar for dollar tariff stuff. We didn't talk about it there, but didn't specify too much, but we're going to take care of it. But they're going to take our country. This is why people are frustrated. And this is the problem that we're witnessing. And this is what you're going to see with this current Carney government. This is not a Trudeau-led government. And the difference is you got very clear flubs from a Trudeau consistently that you can just point to. Wow, he said that. Oh my gosh. Like, what a guy. Carney doesn't operate that way. Carney operates in the gray. Carney operates in the fine print. Carney operates in obfuscation. That's what he does. When headlines go up saying that they've quietly rolled back the tariffs, well, they said it here. They posted a presser. They did this. Articles behind a paywall. One tweet went out. A presser went out. And we never heard about it again until May 7th. But you know what we did hear a lot of? Elbows up. They're going to take our resources. They're trying to break us. They want to own our country. Boom, 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 boom. We heard a lot of that. But we didn't hear a whole lot about this. That shows there's a lack of transparency, and they even care to be transparent. They like to have the resemblance of transparency, but they aren't practicing it. But this is how it's going to work. This is how this Carney government is going to operate moving forward. They do just enough so that their followers, like we saw with that thread, saying, well, they did this and this and this and this. Come on, man. This is fake news. Is it fake news? Or was it so loud of how you're going to fight Trump, and then the decibel level on the rollbacks of tariffs or the carve-outs for tariffs was all the way down here? That's why people are frustrated. That's why this blew up the way it did. And no, people are not lying. No, people are not spreading fake news. No, people are just showing, hey, this was new to us. I heard a lot of this rhetoric over here about Trump wanting to own us. I didn't hear a whole lot about this. Well, that was purposeful. That was political messaging. That was political theater. And it's theater that this liberal government's going to be very good at. And it's incumbent and is really important on people who cover the news, people who do have YouTube channels, and people who are in media. You have to get down to the nitty gritty of all this. I'll call it out for what it was. I wrote this over the weekend. It says, I can't wait until Monday where I debunk this whole thread in one video. And even Stuart Benson, who we just had on the show, said, how are you going to debunk the public record? And that, my friends, is where the debate is. Yes, the public record says that they were going to roll this back on April 16th, but the political theater was very muted on this very issue. And that you cannot deny. And that is where the tension lies and where the frustration lies for many people. You even had to hear, this is another point that people will bring up. Well, he brought it up in a press conference on the campaign trail. Well, listen to this for a second.
Have you spoken with any automaker CEOs? If not, why not? And we know your finance minister is announcing new measures today to deal with this kind of thing, with remissions and a framework for that, a 6-month reprieve in terms of imported goods used in manufacturing. Are measures like that enough to keep production here?
Thank you for your question. First, to say, this gives us a sense of the scale of the attack on our auto sector and our other sectors. But I will speak, Trina, since you went directly to auto, I'll speak directly to auto. And one other word of context, which is the North American automobile sector is the most integrated industrial manufacturing sector in the world, particularly the Canadian-U.S. Auto sector. And so President Trump's tariffs are an attempt in some degree to pull apart that integration and the benefits that come from that integration, benefits to the United States, benefits to Canada, benefits to Mexico. And we are seeing some of the impacts in the short term of that with layoffs for some of our automakers, potential shifts in production if this situation remains. Huge increase in costs ultimately to American consumers, obviously to Canadian consumers. Our focus is on jobs and growth here in Canada. It's misguided, it's not going to work, and we're already seeing some of the changes to the approach.
He goes on to kind of talk about the relationship and what that means when they go on to the negotiation table with Donald Trump. But people will use this as an example. Oh, he talked about the remissions. No, a reporter brought it up in a question on the campaign trail. Then he kind of went off on something else. Salient messaging with strategic obfuscation. That is the mantra of this liberal government, and you'll continue to see it. And we're already seeing it now with the current issue with the budget. Fred Delory goes off on this yesterday of the fact that there was no budget announced. What's going on with the budget? What's happening with the budget on CBC? And here's Fred Delory going off on all of that.
And it goes against the entire narrative of Carney that he is the man with a plan. That's why he told Canadians, and it's why he won this last election. They believed he had a plan. And in fact, he used it as an attack point. You know, a plan beats no plan. He has no plan now. He doesn't have a fiscal plan. Now he was elected leader of the party in March. You know, he could have given direction even before the election on what he wants his budget to look like. He had a costed platform. Why is there no budget? I find it absolutely mind-boggling that they're doing this, that not giving anything, any kind of a statement.
But what about if it was like, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this too, right? You know, when you guys won government in 2006 with Harper, he was sworn in early February, budget came in May. So if you give like a financial update now and a budget in September, You know what I mean? But it doesn't even seem like there's going to be a budget at all. It's
Right.
going to be an economic state. It says
Right.
your favorite thing.
Right. So look, the Liberals have always been trying to figure out how to budgets balance themselves. Just don't have a budget balance. Look at that.
Right.
No, it's absurd. And even going to September, I think, is not acceptable. You look at the 2006 when Harper came in, that was a wholly transformed government.
I get it.
And they had a number of months to do it, and they did it. Carney became leader of the party in March. He was prime minister in March. He could have started giving direction, and he just had a fully costed platform. Former, again, central banker, Mr. Finance guy, worked at the Department of Finance, knows the ins and outs of that department. He was one of the guys that helped us do our budget in 2008 when we did it. So it just makes no sense to me. In 2011, we had an election, and a few weeks later, we brought in the budget. Now, it was the same government, same prime minister, but it makes no sense, and it goes against the entire narrative that he set up, that he was the man with the plan.
And Fred said it so very clearly. He advertised himself as he's the man with the plan. He is the crisis negotiator. He is the one who's going to stick it to Trump. He's going to stand up for Canadian values, stand up for our country, and get things back in order. And I still stand by the statement. Quietly rolled back tariffs, refused to release a budget, claiming that they're working on it. No, the reality is by-elections are on the rise likely here. There's a lot of weirdness going on with our situation with Elections Canada where we don't really know how many seats Liberals are actually going to have. And he's going to keep everything quiet into the chest. That really could get people upset until all that stuff is sorted. Let's be honest on that. But anyways, it's good to be back with you. Hope you enjoyed your long weekend. I'll see you later. I'm out.